Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to one of the first Final Fantasy, non-Final Fantasy, should I note, related videos. Today, we are raising one of the burning questions in gaming. As we are close to the end of the generation, with just another few months left in it, the time has come to discuss what exactly is the game of the generation. The game of the generation, people. A burning question that has been around since the start, really. People have been picking out these fantastic games. I think I managed to narrow it down to a select few which have stood out from the crowd of games. I would have liked to have included a Final Fantasy in here, but it is just not true, I'm afraid, ladies and gents. So let's begin. Drinking my cup of tea. Getting all serious. Okay, so before I go through this, I have just some things to note. These are completely my opinions, my rants, my discussions. If you agree with them, woohoo. If you don't, please don't get angry at me and don't put all this shit in the comments because I can't be bothered to deal with it. I will deal with it, but I can't be bothered to. But please put in the comments what you think the game of the generation is without, trying to be mean or bitchy. I'm looking at you. So, cough. Portal 2 is the first game I am going to cover, and it has stood out from the crowd since it came out. Now, one of the questions with Portal 2 is it better than Portal 1? Now, surprisingly, since Portal 2 was, utterly fantastic, people still think that the first one was still better. Now, I don't know. I've played both of them. The first one took about 3 hours to beat. Portal 2, I did an experiment actually. It took me 15 hours to complete it. Not knowing what to do. I don't play the co-op, so that's no co-op. And then I played it again, and it takes 10 hours to do it if you know exactly what you're doing. So you add on an extra 5 hours because you don't have a fucking clue what you're doing half the time. But still, it's fun. Okay, so I'm going to go through each of these games, starting with Portal 2, and I'm going to talk about the highlights and the lowlights as well. So for Portal 2, its highlights were the writing. The scripting in Portal 2 and the voice acting is fantastic. Even though Chell, whatever you want to call her, is mute, you can... The Wheatley and GLaDOS and the announcer, it's fantastic. It's hilarious. The writing in it is sarky, is good. In a game, when games try to be funny, it normally falls flat on its face and nothing happens. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's just... Portal 2 stood out from the crowd for that. It also stood out the crowd for gameplay mechanics and story because... sorry, I've got a bad cough. Story, well, not as much story, I'll come back to that later, but game mechanics, we saw it in the first Portal. I can't get rid of this fucking cough. There we go. Gameplay mechanics, we saw it in the first Portal. It was brilliant, shit, Portal was so cool, you could fall for ages and ages and ages, and it was great. The lore in the game, that's what I meant to talk about. The lore in that game is massive. It is completely huge. Like, you could read up for days and days and days about Half-Life lore, and the Portal 2 would pop up more than once. You got your Borealis, you got your Carolyn, you've got your Cave Johnson, F-Stop, all these stuff, all apertures, dark days and all that nonsense. But yeah, you honestly could just read up about it, and it's fun. You make up your own theories and all that, link it with Gordon and G-Man and all this, and it's just so awesome. Now, for me, a downfall for Portal was the physical story. Now, I don't mean the dialogue or anything, but it was great, but I found it a bit boring sometimes. I know, like, Portal is a puzzle game, you have to do all this, so I don't really like puzzle games, but I love Portal. But the thing was, it's just, when you go down the levels in Aperture, I got bored of it quite easily. There is quite a lot of story, but like I say, most of it is lore. Like, the story in Portal 2 is huge, but you don't actually get any of it fed to you in the plate in a game, which is disappointing. But still, it's good, it's funny, you can relate to it, and it's really good. Like, words can't stress how much I love this game. So Portal 2 was released in 2011 and sold more than 4 million units, which is a big wow. A big wow for game companies. So moving on to Portal 2's predecessor, we have Half-Life 2. Now, before you start shouting at me, whoa, this technically wasn't in this generation because it was released in 2004. It was released in this generation if you count the full pack with Half-Life 2 Episode 1 and 2 and the orange box. Half-Life 2 was released now. Half-Life 2 is quite possibly, arguably, sorry, I'll just drink a cup of tea. Half-Life 2 is arguably the most famous game in the world. People have been anticipated for the third release in the series for a long time. So Half-Life was released in 98, I believe, and Half-Life 2 was released in 2004, then the whole set was released in 2007. Now, this counts as this generation before you start shouting at me, but if you don't count it, please don't get mad. Just put in the comments saying, I don't agree with what you're saying, you thick fuck. That's all you need to write. Maybe not that harsh, but still. Half-Life 2, I played it, I played them all, and highlights for me in this game was so much. I'm just trying to pick out a few. I think it was the connection you had with the characters, because in Half-Life 1 you felt a bit alone and all the characters were the same, you didn't know who was who, but in Half-Life 2 you've got friends and it's not like people you meet, and like, granted you meet Alex and like, but you got your pal, you got your buddies, you've got the gang. You don't feel alone in Half-Life 2. You get Alex following you around like fleas around shit, but still she's a great companion. She's the second best companion in the game, which we will come to that, and that is true. That is according to Zoomin Games, the Forgotten channel, the Pish Forgotten channel. Alex is the second best companion ever in the game. Granted, she doesn't really do much, but she does kill some things. My downfall for Half-Life 2 is probably again the story. It is mostly lore. In the first Half-Life, Half-Life 2, sorry, you sort of, it's good, the story, I'm not saying there isn't a story, but there isn't much of a story. They're going through Ravenholm and all that, meeting the new people, and all that. Yeah, that was good. That was good, but this just the nothing's wrong with lore. I love lore, but I prefer games to be more story enriched, if you get what I'm saying. You know, I prefer them to be not handing you in a plate, but, you know, be letting you be more involved with it. But still, Half-Life 2, which was released in 2007, what I am taking it as, sold over 12 million units, which is the highest of this year's game of the generation for me. So, big wow for Half-Life 2. Bring on Half-Life 3, game you will. Come on, you know you can do it. Okay, moving on to one of my personal favourites. Two of my personal favourites, actually. First of all, we're going to cover BioShock, the horror game that completely changed gaming. BioShock is the highest rated first person shooter of all time. I have a poster to clarify that for you. I would also rate it as one of, if not the best game I've ever played. Maybe it's the second best game I've ever played. You can probably guess what my first favourite game is of all time, but we'll come on to that later. BioShock was a big hit. It was a massive hit, but it had also gone through a lot of trouble. People don't know this, but BioShock is technically the third installment in a sort of ongoing series. We've had System Shock, which is done by Looking Glass Studios, if I am to believe correctly. Then we had System Shock 2, which is done by Irrational Games, both of which didn't do quite well. So Ken Levine said, fuck it, I'm going to do this whole thing again. I'm going to start again, start from scratch, you know, bump this up a bit. So then BioShock was created, and when it was first created, it was supposed to be a sort of cool, hip, urban kind of thing. Like the logo was just a spray painted BioShock, and it looked weird. I'd like to have tried it, but still. The high points for BioShock is one, the story. The story in BioShock is incredible, and it's not just lore. You've got your audio logs, which do count as lore, but still, the story, linear path story, is fantastic. It is just, it's wow, to be quite honest with you. The twist, I'm not going to say spoiler warning, because if you haven't played BioShock, there's something wrong with you. The twist in that game is just, wow, boom, back of the head, exploded everywhere. I haven't heard many people to say they don't like BioShock, to be quite honest with you. I count there being two BioShock games, BioShock and BioShock Infinite, not BioShock 2. Which you speak of. I have no idea what this BioShock 2 is. But yeah, it was a huge release. The target sales for BioShock were 1 million, and it was released in 2006. and it managed to sell over 5 million units, which is fantastic for a game that essentially started off as an indie game. It's fantastic. So now moving on to Bioshock Infinite, which is, oh my god, I cannot describe how good this game is. Elizabeth, I'll start off with her, won the companion, the best companion ever in a video game, and she is quite possibly the biggest highlight for this game. Elizabeth is the most human thing in a video game I've ever come across. She is more human than Booker, the character you play. She's more involved. She looks at stuff. She doesn't just stand around, follows you, clop clop, clippity clop. She looks at stuff. She does stuff. She can go away herself. You don't need to protect her. She protects herself. She runs off. She's excited. She looks at things. She's enamored. She's beautiful. She's all these really good things that make a video game character come to life. She is lifelike. It's scary. It honestly is quite scary how, related to this character you can come to be. That is the biggest highlight for Bioshock Infinite. The second one is the story. It is the story in Bioshock. There's non-stop story in Bioshock Infinite. Okay, it just keeps going and going and going. You don't have like little paths, like linear stuff. You've got a lot of lore as well. You got the Mind and Revolt books. You got the Founders and the Populi. I believe Founders and Populi. Yeah, Founders versus Vox Populi. Oh my god, it's fantastic, and the twist in that. Bioshock made my head explode backwards. Bioshock Infinite made my head fucking explode everywhere. Took me, I didn't sleep the night I completed Bioshock Infinite. I just had to think about it. Think. Yeah, it's so cool. Downfalls is it was nothing like the demos we saw. Now, I'm not saying this is it's quite a bad thing, but the demos look cool. The demos are what get people into games, and then to give them this game which looks nothing like what you showed is a bit. It's not a kick in the teeth. Bioshock Infinite is still amazing, but I think it would have been a bit better if it looked like what they promised it was going to look like. If you get what I'm saying. But still, Bioshock Infinite was released this year, this last month, released in 2013. It is still the top of the gaming charts, and it has sold over 1 million units. It's probably over 2 million now that I'm saying this. It's just wow, big wow. So moving on to one of the later games. Which is one of my favourites as well. I've clocked countless hours into this game, is Little Big Planet 2. Now, Little Big Planet was the charming game. Tea break, sorry, hang on. It was a charming game that changed creativity forever. Little Big Planet was amazing. You could build stuff, you could destroy stuff, you could have fun with friends, really good co-op, online, one player paused the screen, your screen didn't pause, it was cool. Easy to use tools, 3-year-olds could use them. It was family friendly, it was brilliant, you got your costumes and everything, and it was just wow, fantastic. This game, I pre-ordered it and I ran home from school the day it came out for Little Big Planet 2, and I was not disappointed. The highlights for this would probably be the creative mode, which adds so much more. You've got your logic gates, you've got your new materials, and you've got all your stuff, and it's just so awesome. And another thing with LBP is that I'm not annoyed at DLC. That's one of the highlights. Normally for games, DLC is a low light, but for Little Big Planet, the DLC is one of its biggest things. It's fantastic. I got the Bioshock Infinite DLC as well. They don't just include like sort of kiddie stuff in it. They actually do include full on like adult game stuff. Like you get Bioshock stuff in there, and you actually got most of the characters here. You get Drake as well, and you don't think you got Chill, but you can make your own stuff. Now, downfall for Little Big Planet 2 probably be the community. It was fantastic when it started off, as was Little Big Planet 1, but it just sort of like went corrupt now. If you would like, people just put on these bomb survivals, train survivals, kill Justin Bieber levels, shark survivals. Shark survivals? Yeah, shark survivals. But yeah, Little Big Planet 2 was released in 2011 and has sold over 400,000 units. So now we move on to, I wouldn't say it's one of my personal favourites. This one just hit the post, first past the post, was just there, just pew right by me. Is Dishonored. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Dishonored because I think it's a complete Bioshock ripoff, but if I left out, people would start shouting at me. You can't deny that Dishonored is a good game. I know. It's quirky, it's good. I don't really like the art style, to be quite honest with you. I know it's supposed to look cartoonic, but I just don't think it goes with the sort of seriousness of the game. I mean, like Bioshock Infinite was supposed to look sort of cartoony, but it still wasn't as cartoony as Dishonored. Dishonored looks like Alice, like the Alice games, but still, it was a really good game. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed using the blinks, whatever they're called. I can't really remember, but you know, the powers you got and everything. Kind of like plasmids, if you ask me. But still, it was a great game. Highlight for me would probably be there's quite a few highlight things about this game I like, but the highlight for me would probably be the mechanics of the game, because it works really well. I think it combines sort of Fallout and Bioshock and all these games. You know, you get this sort of, not freedom, but you know, actually no, my biggest favourite thing about this game is Dunwall. Dunwall is one of the best gaming worlds in a game, I must say. It's so cool, steampunk, Victorian, we've all got the plague, rats running about. It's an awesome city to be in, and it's, even though the characters look sort of Alice in Wonderlandy, the city just comes to life as well. Granted, in no way is it a free roaming game, because you're told where to go. You can go to different places as well, like, but you have to go here, do this, do that. But yes, this Dishonored was released in 2012 and has amassed over 400,000 units. It's probably over 1 million by now. But well done, Dishonored. And I believe there's going to be Dishonored 2. I will definitely pick that up. So, last but not least, we have Uncharted 2. Now, not the largest fan of the Uncharted series. I haven't properly played that much of it. But still, Uncharted 2 is undoubtedly one of the best games this generation has to offer. This is, you know, your sort of Indiana Jones meets Tomb Raider kind of thing. You know, when people say Tomb Raider copied Uncharted 3, no, Uncharted copied Tomb Raider because Lara Croft was there first. But the highlights for me in this game is probably the cinematics. They're really cool, you're involved in some of them. Quick time events, nobody really likes them, but still they went quite nicely with this game. And the stories as well, which pass through them all, and the fact that the second one of the series is better than the new one. Normally everybody goes, oh, the new one much better than the old one, but no. But for Uncharted 2, people actually realised, hang on a minute, 3 is shit compared to this, but which I think was a good thing to do. It was more pure, if you get what I'm saying. Like, it gives me some hope for the industry, because it doesn't mean that people just jump for the newest thing. People do still prefer all the old classics. Yeah, so like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of the Uncharted series, but still Uncharted 2 did stand out from the rest of the games. I managed to sell, pardon me, I just burped you. I managed to sell over 5 million units, which is fantastic as well. So, out of all these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games that I have managed to narrow down for the game of the generation, I have picked out 2 of these games which I think may be in the running for game of the generation. But I'm not going to tell you what I think. I want you to try and guess what my favourite games are, and I will announce them in next week's Final Fantasy Fridays. Booyah. So thank you all very much for watching me gabbering on about this. Please remember, don't be mean in the comments or harsh. Just put in the comments what you think the game of the generation is for you, and we'll see where it goes from there. So thank you all very much for watching. Don't forget to stay tuned for more. Ciao!